If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? Welcome to another episode of the FightersRep video podcast. I'm your host, the FightersRep, and I'm here with some Cali whiskey. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to be talking about these UFC fight night fights that are going to be going on tomorrow. UFC fight night. This is our preview, our predictions for Harris versus Overeem. This is the live chat. Anybody can join. Anybody can call in. And we always have a good time doing this. And another fight card, man. We went from having nothing. We went from having nothing to having three, cards in 1 week, and it's a fantastic thing for fight fans all over the world. So, I kind of wanted to go ahead and get into this, man. There's definitely some interesting matchups on this card, and again, this thing's going down in Florida. Again, I believe also in Jacksonville. They're just milking it out there in Jacksonville with the Florida State Athletic Commission. But there's some exciting fights on this card. And let's start with the main event. Alistair Overeem versus Walt, the big ticket Harris. The way I look at this fight is I see that, Alistair Overeem is a guy who's definitely, he's definitely on the back end. He's definitely on the back end of his career. He's got a ton of experience. He's a fantastic striker. A fantastic background in striking. Also in MMA. But he got KO'd bad in his last outing against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We saw what happened to Jairzinho when he went in there against, Francis Ngannou. Of course, Francis Ngannou is a totally different animal. But, Overeem at this point has become sort of a gatekeeper heavyweight. He's been knocked out every time he's kind of stepped up. And even when he hasn't really stepped up, he's been kind of fighting and struggling. Excuse me. He's been kind of fighting and struggling with B-level heavyweights. And I think this fight will help us kind of gauge where he's at in the heavyweight division, because he is going to be going up against Walt Harris, who is also a guy who's kind of, on the cusp in the heavyweight division. And it's going to show us where both guys are at. It's going to show us where Walt Harris is at, too. And Walt Harris is a guy, also a big guy, 6'5", listed as a little bit taller than Alistair Overeem, but he's rattled off a couple good wins. He had a TKO against Sergey Spivak, and then he KO'd Alexei Olenek, who we saw what he did to Verdum in his last outing. He TKO'd Daniel Spitz. He had a no contest against Andrei Arlovsky. It was originally a split decision win, but then he tested positive for some kind of substance, LGD 4033. Not even sure what that is. But the bottom line here, excuse me. The bottom line here is, I feel like Walt Big Ticket Harris, even though he's 36 years old, he doesn't have the wear and tear on him that an Alistair Overeem has at 39 years old. And I really like Alistair Overeem to get probably knocked out in this fight. I really like Walter Big Ticket Harris in this fight. By the way, big shout out to Sydney AI in the chat. She said, hello, it's me, Sid, from Long Beach Khmer Boxing. shout out to you guys. I hope you guys are doing well during this pandemic. I saw you guys have raised some funds. You guys deserve every penny of it. So shout out to you guys. Much love to Long Beach Chimera Kickboxing. Speaking of which, if you guys want to help me save the fight gyms in the Southern California area, all you got to do is hit the link below in the description and donate to the fundraiser. It'll take you to the Facebook fundraiser page, and you can help me there. But I like Walt Harris in this fight. He's a young, surging heavyweight. I feel like we've seen the best out of Overeem. We have not seen the best out of Walt Harris. I feel like he's continuing to improve, whereas Overeem is kind of, on the tail end of his career. He's able to beat the decent guys, but I don't think he's going to be able to beat any of the big names. Again, he's lost to Curtis Blades. He's lost to Francis Ngannou. He's lost to Stipe Miocic. He lost to Jairzinho Rosenstrike. And the problem is, he's not losing this where you would expect him to lose it in a submission or on the ground. He's losing these fights by knockout, which, is not going to bode well for a guy like Alistair Overeem, who is more of a stand-up guy. He's more of a stand-up fighter, and doesn't look good for him to be losing to the guys he's been losing to. So I agree with the odds makers on this one. They seem to have Walt Harris between a minus 150, minus 160 favorite. I like those odds. If I'm a betting man at the sports books or online or wherever, I would definitely go with Walt Harris on this one. I expect a knockout. As far as the co-main event, we've got Claudia Gadelha versus Angela Hill. And in this one as well, Claudia Gadelha is the favorite. She is the favorite, and I think that that's to be expected. Gadelha, has been doing very well for herself. She's coming off a win against Ronda Marcos. She did lose previous to that to Nina Ansaroff, but it was a split decision. She beat Carla Esparza before that in a split decision. Actually, she lost to Ansaroff, a unanimous decision. But, she beat Carla Esparza prior to that. She's got some notable wins. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, when she was still pretty good. She did lose to Joanna when Joanna was still really good back in 2016, and she lost a decision there. And again, she's coming off a win against Ronda Marcos. She's a powerful girl. She's tough, and I like her in this fight, man. I think she's very physical. I think she's strong. I think she's got a lot of heart, and I don't know if Angela Hill has anything for her. Obviously Angela Hill, a decent fighter in her own right. I do think she does have probably the height and reach advantage, maybe. Even though it won't. The online statistics won't agree. I do feel like she's a little bit taller, but and she has won 3 in a row. But I don't think she's faced the same sort of competition. She actually lost to Ronda Marcos by submission back in 2019. She also lost to Ansaroff. So, she is coming off 3 wins in a row. That's where you gotta, consider your pick on this one. But I just feel like she's not at the level of a Claudia Gadelha yet. And I don't know if she'll ever be. I like Gadelha. I think she's tougher. I think she's a better fighter. I think she's a better, all-around fighter. I think she's stronger. And I agree with the odds makers on that one. Here's one in the next fight, Edson Barboza versus Dan Ige. I'm not even sure how you would pronounce that. But this is a fight. Where I got to go against the odds makers, or the majority of the odds makers, who have Edson Barboza between a minus 135 and a minus 140 underdog. And the reason I kind of got to go against this is because Edson Barboza, as good as he is, has lost 4 of his last 5 fights. He lost an absolute war against Paul Felder in his last fight. And he got knocked out in 1 round by Justin Gaethje in the fight before that. Even the fight he was in with Dan Hooker that he won by TKO in the 3rd round, that was a rough fight. Before that, he got TKO'd by Kevin Lee. And before that, he lost a very grueling decision to Khabib Nurmagomedov. This is a guy that's been in a lot of wars, and at the age of 34, having come off a war with Paul Felder and being knocked out against Justin Gaethje, you know, I feel like I've seen the best of him, and I don't feel like he's going to do that well against a surging Dan Ige, forgive me, I got to work on the pronunciation with this guy. But yeah, he's surging. And what do I mean by that? He's won 5 in a row in the UFC. His last win was against a highly touted Mirsad Bektic, who's, you know, a pretty high-level guy, albeit a bit, you know, up and down, but a high-level guy. He beat Kevin Aguilar before that, Danny Henry, Jordan Griffin, and Mike Santiago. And the fight against Mirsad Bektic, he won a split decision. But, man, I think that did wonders for his confidence. He's also a guy that trains out of AKA, so you know he's getting some good work in. You know he's getting some good work in, man. And the guy's tough as nails, man. The guy's tough as they come. He's tough as nails. And I just feel like he's going to beat Edson Barboza, who's also tough. But I don't think he's going to be as well-rounded as Dan, who, you know, is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got a black belt in BJJ. He's shown some good striking. And he's a 28-year-old young upcoming tiger, man. He's a tiger. And I think he's got this one, man. I got to go against the odds makers. I don't like the momentum disparity. You know, you got one guy losing 4 out of the last 5. You got one guy winning 5 in a row. Young tiger coming up, training at AKA with those monsters. So I gotta go with Dan, man. I gotta go with Dan. The next fight is a bit funky. We've got Eric Anders and Krzysztof Jotko. You know, Anders has kind of been up and down. Man. He's also 33 years old. I think at any time, right, he can beat anybody. He was looking real good. He was undefeated until he lost to Lyoto Machida, and that kind of started a sort of up and down for him. He went on to beat Tim Williams after that. Then he lost 3 in a row. 1 to Thiago Santos, 1 to Elias Theodorou, and then 1 to Khalil Roundtree, where Roundtree really beat the shit out of his legs. I remember that fight. He then won 2 in a row versus Vinicius Moreira and Gerald Mearshart. That was a split decision that he won in the last one. So he's still a bit up and down. You know, he's still a bit up and down, and I can see why the odds makers would have Krzysztof Jotko as a favorite in this one. A guy who's won 2 in a row, but in all fairness, you know, he beat the last guy he beat was Marc-Andre Barriault, and before that, Alan Amadovsky. Before that, he lost 3 in a row to Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, and David Brandt. So this is going to be a close fight. Jotko, I think, has the advantage as the 30-year-old. He's got a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Anders also has a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I just feel like Jotko, as a younger guy, may have the advantage in this one, although I like Anders' chances as well. I probably got to roll with the younger guy on this one. I like Christoph a little bit more. Anders can win this, but Jotko, I think, is the favorite for a reason here. And let's go on to what's going to be basically the second to last fight I'm going to talk about. It's Song Yadong versus Marlon Vera. And this is a fight I'm really interested in because Marlon Vera's out of Team Oyama. It's a team that, we've worked with in the past as a kickboxing promotion. It's a team we've worked with in the past as a kickboxing promotion, and Marlon Vera is Team Oyama rather, and Marlon Vera's out of there, and I know he's a very tough, capable guy. Even our commentator, our broadcaster on the FightersRep live streams, Chris Cross, the very tough Hawaiian, fights out of Team Oyama. So, we kind of have a little bit of an inside, I think, sneak peek and insider information as to these guys. So Song Yadong, very tough guy, Team Alpha male guy, is a guy who, is 22 years old, born in China, looking very good, and favored to win this fight. He's favored to win this fight. His last fight was a draw with Cody Stamann. Before that, he had won 7 in a row. And, 4 of those 7 were in the UFC against Alejandro Perez, Vince Morales, Felipe Arantes, and Bharat Kandari. That being said, I think the odds makers are sleeping hard on my boy Marlon Vera, who's, just 27 years old, still a baby as well, has a much longer reach, trains out of, again, Team Oyama with some bad mother flowers, and he's won 5 in a row, including a TKO over another very tough SoCal boy in Andre Ewell. Before that, he beat Nolan Hernandez. Before that, Frankie Sands. Before that, Guido Canetti. And before that, Wooly G. Boren. I think the odds makers are making a huge mistake on this one. I think both of these guys are really talented, but I think Marlon Vera, and remember I said it here, remember the FightersRep said it, I think Marlon Vera really turned a corner in that Andre Ewell fight, and I think Marlon Vera just may be a special talent. I think he just may be a special talent. The young, tough, intelligent Ecuadorian who, he's got that South American toughness. I could tell you about that. I know about that, firsthand. He's a tough cat. He wants to represent Ecuador. He wants to put Ecuador on the map. I'm sure Song Yadong wants to do the same for China. But man, I think Marlon Vera, that's a very different mentality there. And I do think that the odds makers are making a mistake on this one and sleeping on Marlon Vera, who looked like a very talented and capable fighter in his last fight against Andre Ewell, who was a very talented guy with a, who had a reach advantage and, massive reach advantage against, I think, Marlon Vera, who's a very talented, capable kid. And the way Marlon beat him, man, TKO'd him, just, I think it speaks volumes. I think it speaks volumes when you understand the talent levels of these two guys, you know. And then Marlon Vera in his last 5 fights, he's won 3 by knockout, 2 by submission, and I think that speaks to, you know, the versatility that he's got. You know, Song Yadong only has 1, I think, let me see here. 1 submission in his last 5 fights, and a couple knockouts. So he's going to be tough too, man. This is going to be a great fight. This is going to be a great fight, but I feel like I understand the quality that Marlon Vera is coming from. I understand the quality. I understand it. And the amount of improvement, or at least, you know, from the eye test, looking at him, how much he'd improved between the fight before his last and his last fight. I mean, he just looked really special to me in that last fight. And man, if he can carry that momentum into this fight, and if he's continued to improve at that rate, I just think the 22-year-old Song Yadong has bit off more than he can chew at this time. And perhaps he will, you know, at some point become a great fighter as well. He's still very young. I mean, I don't see the reason why not. I like Marlon. Based on what I know about his background, what I know about him, the gym that he trains at, his performance in his last fight, the way he's trending, I like Marlon. I like him a lot. So let's go to the final fight that I kind of wanted to touch on. And this one, you know, I'm touching on for personal reasons. It's Giga Chikadze against Mike Davis. And the reason, or rather, Giga Chikadze is no longer fighting Mike Davis. It's Irwin Rivera he's fighting. He's going to be fighting Irwin Rivera. And the reason I like Irwin Rivera very much, and I'm not giving you a prediction, I'm just saying the reason I like Irwin Rivera very much is because in South Florida, I got to see him fight firsthand. I even got to actually announce one of his fights, and I know what kind of dog this guy's got in him. I know what kind of dog this guy's got in him. I know how dangerous this cat is. And as much respect as I got for Giga Chikadze, Irwin Rivera is a very, very tough, very, very proud Mexican fighter, and athletic, coordinated, and a dangerous fight to take on late notice. And if I'm being honest with you, I'm not going to give a prediction on this one. I'm not. I'm just going to say that I will not be surprised if the odds makers get it wrong on this one, because I think they got Giga Chikadze winning this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if they got it wrong and Irwin Rivera wins this fight. That's how good this guy is. You know, again, I've seen him in person. I've called, you know, I announced him as a ring announcer back when I was doing that. I've seen what this guy's capable of, man. I've seen it, and he's no joke. He's no joke. So before I continue, hit the subscribe button, the bell notification icon next to it. Join Knucklehead Nation. Donate to the Super Chat if you can in our fundraiser. And also, be sure to get your FightersRep shirt in the link below. We've also got hoodies and tanks. If you buy one, you're supporting not only the channel, but the promotion. We're the only pro kickboxing promotion in the entire state of California. And if you purchase a shirt, it's much appreciated. So, Knuckleheads, that's what I've got. That's what I've got for you guys. That is my preview of the UFC Fight Night, Harris versus Overeem. I think it's going to be a fun night, man. I think it's going to be a fun night of fights. especially this Harris Overeem fight. I think, it's a real great measure of where these guys are at in their career, where they're going to go, what we can expect next for both guys. And I do think Harris pulls it off. I do think Harris pulls it off. And I'm very excited to see what happens there. But anyway, knuckleheads, that's all I've got for you guys. I appreciate you guys joining me. Be sure to tune in tomorrow immediately after the fights. We'll be going live to discuss it in the live chat. And until then, knuckleheads, keep it clean. I'll see you tomorrow, guys.